That's right. Oh, healthcare. There we go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. I am one of your co-hosts, Lauren Gray, and with us is a very special co-host who is often keeping in the wings and keeping us accurate and on mark and giving some wonderful questions. She's been on the show before, and we have been able to drag her back onto the show again, and that is Ms. Darlene Rondeau with Leonardo VFM. Now, is it better to just say Leonardo or Leonardo VFM, or what is the proper nomenclature now for the company's name?
Leonardo. So
Leonardo.
When we dropped VFM a couple of years ago, but so many people in the marketplace still know us as VFM Leonardo. So, it's all good. As long as they call us.
As long as they call. You can call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner. And with us is Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert.
I was going to say, I always liked, instead of VFM, I didn't like so much. Visual Frenzy Media, now I like that.
That was true. That was back the original. Yep.
That was the original name of the company, spelled out, and then we abbreviated it to VFM and then ditched that when we bought Leonardo, and there you go.
Yep. And also with us is Mr. Edward St. Ange, who we have to tolerate his gloatiness today because he is sporting the just off the mill iPhone 10, which he was very quick on pointing out a wonderful animated emoji to me just to gloat because he knew that I would take it in the spirit that was intended, which was to.
Because you're not getting yours till December, right, Lauren?
Yes. Thank you so much for the painful reminder. Please, more lemon juice in that paper cut. I would sincerely appreciate that. But yes, Mr. Ed is from Flip2. So.
And how early you get your iPhone determines how good a person you are. Basically.
Oh, it is. It's definitely mine's better. Yep.
Yeah, just not in the way his tone makes you think. It's the earlier, the worse of a person you are.
In the spirit of the show, we have always dedicated at least the first half hour, though we've never kept it within just a half hour. But we realize that it's sometimes hard to get everyone's time schedules. And Darlene, we are privileged to have your time with us today. And so we would love to go over and just literally steer it to you and say, please guide us through whatever you would like to talk about and in whatever context, and we will try to keep as intelligent sounding as possible during the process.
No problem.
I don't know. That's a tall
okay.
Now we all turned into Goofy from Disney, right?
So many things to talk about. Why don't we start with, is the hospitality industry really prepared for voice search? I think the short answer is no, because I think there are many hotel marketers who are not that ready for SEO in general. And what consumer behavior is these days for those who use voice search, and it's on a huge growth trajectory, is they ask questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. And so the better the content, the better that content answers those reporter type questions, the better they're going to surface to the top of the rankings. So I just wanted your guys' opinion on what you thought of that.
Well, listen, I think, first of all, I think hotels are misunderstanding what this is going to disrupt. I think they think this is going to disrupt how people discover where they want to go and what they want to do. And I don't think it touches that area. What it's going to disrupt is an area that they're getting killed in right now anyways, which is trying to compete for the consumer at time of transaction. Like, this is the motivating reason to get your act together on voice search, because it's cheaper to be present there than it is to try to spend the PPC budgets that you need to spend to be present at time of purchase. This isn't a head in the sand type thing like many things have been in this industry. This should be a, hooray, there's a new platform to get to the consumer when they're ready to buy. Like, that's our jam. Our entire marketing is focused around when the consumer is ready to buy. So they should be jumping on this and really focusing on it, because it can lower their cost of acquisition.
Mm-hmm. I would add to that, though, I don't think it's just about the point of purchase. As we all know, right, marketing is this continuum of activities along the path to purchase. And so along the way, I think answering those questions will be, it'll serve several purposes, right? It will be helpful to the consumer. If you're doing it right, you'll be memorable as they move through that shopping journey. We know that they're going to go to a number of websites to check out the options. We know that they're going to look at reviews. We know that special offers are important. And so to me, the whole thing is that people should be developing their content. And by content, I mean not just photos, but integrating the reviews and writing the copy, right? A list of amenities isn't going to cut it. A list is not a story, and a list doesn't.
And a hairdryer in the room is hardly an amenity.
Exactly, right? Yeah, you have a hairdryer and towels and a TV, right?
Right.
I mean, we really do need to go further than that.
Well, and just on the TV point, though, I mean, now it's more, I mean, individuals are interested. Can they cast to the screen? Can they watch? I mean, on Thursday or whenever, when the new seasons of Stranger Things came out, there were probably people in hotels trying to figure out, how can I stream this? Hey, here's this big hunk of glass that looks great. I would love to watch it there, and they're watching it on their phones, right? Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. How you do all that, and there's not really a good standardized mechanism for people to figure that out before they stay.
And while you're looking at conquering your content for this side, you need to be paying a lot of attention to what Amazon's recently done. So they've recently taken voice and married it with a screen. Gee, why do you think they did that? It's because they know the decision path is not just going to be through question and answer. People are going to want to see things in that decision path. And they've successfully created a new environment. So you have desktop, you have mobile. Soon you're going to have whatever that thing's labeled as. A discovery screen, maybe. I'll coin that now if you guys want to.
I like that, Ed. You must be a marketer.
Well, I just look at that as a response to Google, though, predominantly, with the Google Assistant, right? Because it works great on Android, and yes, it works on a Google Home. But yes, if you are kind of tethered to your Android, and having to look at that, when you're asking a question, the Google Home's answering, that's a disconnect. So I think Amazon, smartly figured out, if you're across the room saying something to it, and now you can go get it, and here you go. And I think Microsoft's trying to do the same thing with Cortana.
Did you guys see that article? It was I'll have to find the link and I'll send it to you. But there was an article outlining Apple's vision of the future in 1987, and I posted it up on LinkedIn. It's a video, and if you look at what it is Siri with a screen with telecommunications tied into it, and it's like 20 minutes long, and it looks modern today, and they nailed it, and they were ridiculed for it. Like they were blasted for that would never be how computers are used and how it'll work, and it's an amazing look at a company that was being futuristic in the 80s, and they just nailed it. Bill Nye was the video guy.
Like many inventions that are before their time, right? They get ridiculed and laughed out of the room.
But if you look, Amazon just built that device. I mean, it's the closest device on the market right now to that video futurism. It's not as advanced yet, but it'll get there. And it was really smart Q&A and continuous lines of communication. So not just a one-time ask, one-time answer. It was a series that continued down. Which is where voice is going to go. You're going to be able to go into depth of conversation where it's going to remember decisions you've made in the line to then continue getting you to where you want to be. And this is where it is going to get tough for hotels, because you're going to have to become an expert in consumers. and they're not.
Yeah.
Well, just to go back to some things that we had mentioned before, is that we know that the progression of voice right now, we have to determine what is the right question to ask to get the right response we're looking for. And just like search did with the ability to auto-fill in thinking of what you're trying to search for. So to your point, Ed, that they're going to start going and say, did you mean you were looking for this type of hotel for this reason, or you were looking for something for the family versus the business travel that you have, or whatever the qualifying questions begin to come out of this process to it. But we mentioned before, it's like, as much as not to point out the iPhone 10 again that you have and I don't, is this may be the last phone created because we know that there's a dissemination of its use.
Created.
Well, in the sense of
no, we need to get off of this as a device.
Right.
This is wrong.
What I mean.
This is not what a phone should be. This is what a phone should be. This shouldn't exist. We shouldn't have this.
Right. So what I'm saying is, by being the last phone created, is that this is the last type of formatted phone like this. And instead, we're going to see things like we're talking about with the third gen watch, like we're talking about with interfaces or wearables and so forth. We're getting disseminated, just like Amazon's now. You might have a face to the screen now. It might be a little visual where the audio couldn't fulfill the request. I mean, they may seem, they may say something like, "Is this what you're looking for?" And a picture might pop up, and help collaborate or corroborate what it is the search discovery voice activation is doing. And to your question, Darlene, is that with hotels, without having the information relevant to them in the context that it would be usable, they're not in that conversation at that point. I mean, they're just not being found. If you're pointing out, as you say, a hairdryer, it's the last and least of, and even not even relatable concern associated with the search discovery. So yeah, it is.
And you need to think through like the type of queries that are going to come of this. It's going to start with, I want to go on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of trip are you looking for? Well, I want to take my family somewhere. Well, you can't just go right in there. There should be more questions like, what's your family? Like, do you have kids? Like, is it your
a family can mean
your elderly in-law? Like, what is that? Like, it should be back and forth.
And the client technology should know that too, right? Ideally, but again,
it's going to have access to your calendar. It's going to have access to your.
If it's Amazon, because it spies on you, it does know that.
Well, Google knows
you have access to that.
But again, it goes back to knowing your calendar, knowing your work schedule and so forth. It might actually proactively, just like your health monitor in your phone saying, hey, another 30-minute walk and you might lose that 10 pounds you've been dying to lose or whatever. It might go over and say, hey, you've been working too much.
Yeah, because you're going to get hit by a car and you're going to have your legs severed. Yeah.
Right. It might be something like that. But, the idea of it is, it's like, hey, you've been working too much. You might consider taking the family out or, you're whatever. It might actually become interactively or proactive in that sense because it will have that level of information.
Well, actually, I just...
Guys, with Visly, are you doing anything to help hotels get in front of this?
Well, we launched several months ago a substantial SEO component to our product offering. So as our CEO loves to say, before we had the car without the engine, and now with the inclusion of SEO services, we have the engine. So we're, I think, you guys said it, baby steps, right? So we're working with an industry. We're trying to help them get their arms around creating content that serves the long tail search, which is, we believe, a precursor to the whole voice search thing. Because, consumers are smart that way, right? The more they get answers to the questions they're asking by typing in, 4, 5, 6 word phrases, they're learning that, I really can ask a pretty detailed question and get a pretty detailed answer. Well, the reason that works is because the websites that are surfacing to the top of the rankings are those that have been designed with long tail in mind. So I think that's going to help voice search inevitably. And I think we'll see some new things with voice that we don't currently see with typing in desktop queries.
Mm-hmm. I just tried a query here with my little Google Home. I just said, I said, okay, Google, what's the best hotel in New York? And it's probably going to start answering me.
Yeah, that's more.
And and it says I found a few now. And the list is interesting because it comes back, okay, Google, shut up. See, it responds. So,
you're gonna regret that when Boston Dynamics robots become sentient.
They'll send the robot dogs
come right at you and be like, "Shut up!"
They,
really?
I believe they divested of Boston Dynamics.
I wonder why they did.
But the code's still probably in there.
It kept becoming sentient and evil.
They just haven't activated the code. But the 3 hotels now basically somewhat matches the 3-pack that comes back on Google search if you type it in. But the 3 were interesting. It was the Pod 51 Hotel, the Refinery Hotel, and on voice it was the Marriott Marquis. On this one, it's actually the Ace. If I do it on the screen, so
the Marriott Marquis is the best hotel in New York, huh? All I have to say is, where's the Plaza? They're not doing something right.
Well, I think
where's the Mandarin Oriental? Like, those are the best hotels in New York.
Right. Well, but if you look at it, what they did was they went and if I type it in, you can see some clues. It's a 4.0 plus rating. Nothing to do with hotel class. They are just going for, now again, the Pod 51, which got listed first in both, had a 4.0, which isn't really that high. Refinery had a 4.4. The Ace has a 4.3. But its price is $92. Right, so Google's going through and trying to figure out what does best mean.
Well, and I
the personalization,
if it's tailored to you at all. If it's looking at decisions like on consumer, like what level of consumer spend you do on certain items. To
and I've never stayed at the Pod
best, because that's the other challenge here is you have to solve for when someone says what's the best hotel. Well, in what way?
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think what consumers are learning is that they can be more specific. I would consider best hotels in New York more of a head term, right? Because it will return huge amounts of volume. I'm talking about hotels in New York that are pet friendly near the Stage Deli.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what consumers are learning to do. And so if I don't even know what hotel's near the Stage Deli. I think it's probably the Sheraton. And so if I'm the Sheraton, I would want to make sure that, first of all, and this gets back to what we said before, this is all about consumer behavior. Who are your guests? What are the demos? And why do people choose you? Once you understand that, then you can start to create your content around that, because that is what they're going to be typing in the search bar.
Right. Well, also, too, I think just like we talked to a travel agent, we're going to start doing qualifying questions. You might say, hey, I'd like to stay by the Stage Deli. And it might respond back with, is price consideration? Do we need to worry about pet? Or it's going to ask qualifying questions if you haven't already provided it. And then once it gets that familiarity, you say, do you want to make sure it's pet inclusive? And you might say, no, this time don't worry about it or something. So you'll have that kind of more natural dialogue that goes along with qualifying. And again, to your original inspiration of the question, if your hotel isn't contextually related to those topics in a way that's usable in this new format, then it's not going to be included in the result process, because there is some sort of definable quantifiers of, best versus not best, price versus not price. And you need to make sure that data is relevant in the contents that you're presenting so it gets used correctly. It's structured data at the very least.
If I may take us in a different direction, just off something you said. Lauren, you just mentioned travel agents. I've been reading a lot about the travel agency role in today's environment. And something that struck me as profound, but not, is that travel agents buy, they don't shop. And I think, we hear a lot about direct bookings and bypassing the OTAs and all that stuff. I think what we don't talk enough about is the value that travel agents, traditional travel agents, provide in the shopping journey, because they're doing what you just said. They're qualifying that consumer, all the way in. And so when they go online to make the transaction, it's because they're at a point that they're ready to purchase something on behalf of their client.
Mm-hmm. And I actually, you bring up an interesting conversation, not recently, but in times past, that travel agents rely upon static data first, dynamic data second, where they are familiar with the product. Their intimacy of the product and the markets and so forth promotes their starting point. They don't need to say, oh my gosh, I've never been to Athens, even though I'm touting myself as an Athens travel agent. So now I got to start from scratch and figure out where all these things are and stuff. They have a fundamental working knowledge already. They already have preferences that they know and exist. What they need is affirmation and any new updates to it. So sometimes their methodology of search isn't about discovery. It's about reaffirmation, or in the cases of changes, variations to what they may have known before. So yeah, it does bode the differences as to what the communication between travel agents and normal search discovery travelers have.
Yeah.
Or commission override offers and things like that. Or,
okay, there are motivators. We're not,
or getting pushed by the agency.
That wonderful restaurant that always seems to buy you free dinner when you show up with people.
Actually, just real quick on the voice search, I had to check. The Stage Deli is no longer there, so the proper response would be the Stage Deli is closed, as is the Carnegie Deli, which makes us very sad.
I know, it is sad. The Carnegie Deli closing was really sad.
So you're going to have to go to the Second Avenue Deli, or really get an Uber down to Katz's, because I don't know if you want to stay way down there. So
now I got told, and there has been a revival of small, intimate neighborhood delis as well. There has been a growth of those since there seems to be this void being created by these well-established, well-known locations that. I'm still perplexed as to why Carnegie closed. I mean, what was wrong? They always had business.
No. Well, they weren't paying their taxes, allegedly. Weren't paying their taxes quite as accurately as they should have. And they had an illegal gas hookup. The second one was the really bad one.
Oh.
Wow.
And ironically, they probably could have gotten past the gas hookup problem if it wasn't for the taxes issue.
Right.
Perfect storm of combinations. Yeah. Oh, well. Anyway, so we digress off to Delhi. Sorry about that, Darlene.
Hey, Robert, just on a Dallas, not native Dallasite, but the city of Dallas level, we have 2 Shake Shacks now in Dallas. Didn't know if you...
And what do you think of them? Because we have like 5 of them here. And I'm
really?
Yeah, like compared to like BurgerFi or Five Guys, I don't think they're all that... compelling of a difference.
They're good. What struck me was the price of a Diet Coke. It's like $2.50 for a carbonated fountain drink, right? So Five Guys, same thing. Five Guys isn't cheap. I have a strong preference for Five Guys, but
have you had
the ones in BurgerFi?
You guys have that out there? So BurgerFi has come in. It's Shake Shack-esque, a little bit bigger of a footprint. Slightly larger menu, but also I think it's higher quality meat they're using.
It is an interesting. Del Rey was one of the first. It was actually the second. It wasn't the first. It was the second BurgerFi that came out, and neat. It was right on the beach, and neat concept and so forth too. But it is at some point these higher level burger places seem to blend some of the aspects of them to similarities. I mean, there's always the comparison between Five Guys and what's the West Coast one? Is in Dallas too with In-N-Out Burger,
which I used to love. Like it was the first thing I do anytime I go to Vegas is go to In-N-Out Burger. But since we've gotten Five Guys and BurgerFi and all that, it's
well.
By the way, Holly's with us in spirit. She's in the chat room today. Although
she's a Shake Shacker.
Yeah, she's.
Speaking of which, there is something incredibly exciting happening in Dallas this weekend that you should all do, which is go watch the University of Central Florida Knights. Go play SMU, 2 of the hottest up-and-coming coaches in college football facing off.
And SMU football
I'm
tickets
canceling
like
all
15...
of my
SMU football tickets are like $15. I don't know if
watch next year. Their coach, he's a year behind ours. They just qualified for a bowl. SMU next year is likely to be a top 25 ranked college team.
SMU's finally out of the death penalty. Really? I had not realized that so much time had passed.
But if you want to watch some exciting college football, one of the most exciting offenses in college football is playing in Dallas this weekend. And it's not SMU.
He's not biased in any way.
No.
Mr. Ali, where else would you like to steer us today?
I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago for AHOA, the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, and they wanted me to emphasize how they can compete against Airbnb relative to storytelling. And it was really interesting to me because we hadn't really taken an overt position on storytelling vis-a-vis Airbnb before. So through our analysis and our research of how hotels could really compete on that topic, we learned a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. And I've said it before relative to OTAs, and that is that there are really four things that a consumer is looking for, right? They want to see guest room photos, number one. They want a special offer of some sort, and that doesn't have to be price-based, but they do want to feel like they're getting something of value. They won't book a hotel without a review. And lastly, they want to understand what their anticipated experience is going to be. And so, if we look at that compared to OTAs, the one thing that a hotel can do that an OTA cannot is they can tell their story their way. And that, if done right, can really be a huge asset and can be the difference between getting that consumer to book on the OTA or snagging a direct booking. And so,
and some of that too, like, I continue to get shocked when we get pushback on this, but one of the biggest recommendations we make to hotels in how to, take what made Airbnb blow up and apply it, introduce people. Like, don't have everyone buying from a building.
Yeah.
Have them buy and communicate with, I don't know, your GM, your concierge, your front desk people, a fake persona. Like, just have a persona that they're communicating with. So it's, instead of it being sincerely the John Dory Hotel, it's sincerely Lauren from the John Dory Hotel.
Yeah.
And people. Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, and when you talk about basic human needs, like, everyone wants to feel like they're, connected and connecting and included. And, putting a building up between you and your guest is not inclusive. If anything, it leaves the wonder of, oh, well, see, I'm going to go with Airbnb because they're the little guy. This hotel building is, big corporate America, where in most cases it's not, especially your AHOA crowd. I mean, that's small business. That's the backbone of our economy. But they market themselves like they're a massive real estate investment trust that is cold and, wears suits and is in an ivory tower in New York City. I mean, that's what hotels marketing is. And, and I think hotels lost sight of, the guest experience, and the guest experience doesn't start on property.
Right.
It starts way before a booking even.
Yeah. And that's what Bill Marriott famously said, right? People enter through your digital front door long before they set foot in your physical lobby.
That's right.
Yeah.
And and the reason I bring it up is you should have hospitality in your digital experience, because hospitality is what makes you special.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you just look at the stark difference between an Airbnb experience and, by and large, a brand experience, right? They're night and day. The first thing Airbnb does is it gives you the option of choosing what kind of dialogue you want to have with them. Do you want to focus in on the experience? We were talking about that at the top of the show, which was, what is it that you want to do when you get there? Who's traveling? All of those things. And then what they have smartly done is they put people who match those lifestyle experiences in the photos. All of their verbiage and all of their content is written in that same persona. So, just brilliant. But my point is that hotels can do those things. We certainly have the platforms to enable them to do it, but it is going to take a change in mindset instead of the bulleted list of, you have an air conditioner or a thermostat in your room, to you have to describe who you are and why someone should stay with you differently than you have for the last 100 years.
Well, and you should stop looking at other hotels.
Right.
You should look at well-run businesses and how they spend money to bring customers in the door. And you can look at comparable well-run businesses.
Sure.
We just talked about Shake Shack. There are hotel groups that easily line up as a comparable to Shake Shack. Because I look at it this way, and I look at it with my current company and my past company. My past company got to a good size, but still, like, a medium-sized hotel in a major city turns more revenue. So my question always was, why did I take it so seriously? Because I knew it was key to, excel in winning customers and keeping customers and bending to them rather than trying to make them fit the mold that we created. You look at the difference in architecture of a normal small to medium business, and then you take a comparable hotel revenue size, and it's not the same, and I just don't understand it.
Well, and you look at Airbnb, it's just so much harder. It's harder when you have that many different properties. Where a hotel has a fairly, consistent product for a lot of rooms, and it should be much easier. But again, they don't.
Question I have, Darlene, one of the three things you mentioned was, of course, needing a review to do an affirmation or denial of the person's interest in the product. Just bringing more to the current time frame with this little black eye that TripAdvisor just got, with it being kind of national news at this point. Do you think that that's going to create a ripple effect? I mean, given the way that social ripples now compared to even historically 6 months ago.
Why don't you explain the black eye for our viewers, Lauren?
Oh, you mean the one where it's been pointed out that TripAdvisor was purposely or in their algorithm determining that certain reviews were not being posted because they were not family friendly, and they've decided to change their algorithm to be more reflective of reality? That seems like a bit of a cop-out for them. I will have to say it was a little distressing to hear that they used that as their defense. But the idea of it.
But do you read the reviews that get written? I mean,
yes.
You had to have known they were doing it just purely by the fact that there's not a single review on TripAdvisor that reads like anything on Reddit.
Right. And there's a filtration going on, of course.
Right.
But I think
YouTube comments.
Right. But I have to say that is being the primary defense, saying we want to keep it family friendly and let it exist as their status quo for as long as they said they did for the reasons.
Is it because TripAdvisor gets a lot of kids on their site? Is that
it must be. It must be that there's a tremendous amount of children doing reviews.
They have a lot of 12-year-olds that just want to see what the hotel experience is.
But does it lift enough of the veil of doubt or concern in your mind that this will then be changing? It might add validity to Facebook's friends recommendations compared to the general autonomy of TripAdvisor or something. I mean, what do you think?
Let's talk about the psychology behind like having any type of proof, right? So with TripAdvisor, what we're basically saying is we're just going to take the word of strangers because it's better than the word of the marketing material being put in front of me. On your own site, self-cooked reviews, you're literally just saying because you took the time to write something about the experience for this type of persona, we're going to take that as that checks the box. It's not a high bar to provide the proof. So I don't think you're going to see people distrusting TripAdvisor because they're getting rid of internet trolls and people with foul language and things like that. Just like I don't think it's going to make any impact on Facebook, because I think the Facebook friend recommendations is a completely different animal. You know, if you look at the levels of trust, you have, my hand is like down below Robert. You have advertising. Then you have like strangers' thoughts on things. So that could be influencers. It could be TripAdvisor reviews. It could be any of that. People you dislike, because at least you know enough about them to dislike them, so you know how to take what they're saying about something. The people you like, the people you trust, right? That is like kind of the gauge of trust. Here's the thing. It all works. Like advertising at one point, before there was a lot of this, advertising was what people went for. It's not what they go for anymore, because they want that human element, and even if it's a stranger, they'll take it. So you know, I don't see this eroding how people feel on their decision path.
Well, you know, people leaned on advertising because that's all there was, and we had to take the brand's word for it. I think, as you point out, Ed, I think people, and the research will play this out, is that we look to a variety of different sources for reviews, and we weigh them differently. And TripAdvisor will point out, and I think rightly so, it has to do with the recency, frequency, and the number of reviews, and whether the weighting of those reviews are positive or negative, and how many of each they have. So we know that advertising from the brand isn't going to expose their underbelly if they have one, but it's going to tell us all the positive things. And, you know, we could have an entire show just on advertising in and of itself, right? But there's all kinds of different, as we know, advertising out there. So I think the bigger companies, what I see them doing is it's more brand awareness, it's more affinity based, and they are trying to create a personality for themselves and keep that in front of the consumer, knowing that the consumer is going to a variety of sources to get additional information to either confirm that decision one way or the other.
Well, and I think it also goes to a bigger issue, which certainly with Facebook, Twitter, and Google testifying before Congress
I knew you were
for
right.
multiple days. Yeah, well, no, the thing with TripAdvisor, and I'm not defending TripAdvisor at all, because the no profanity thing I think is fine, right? They say, you know, if you're going to use this language, they filter it out. I think where things started to shift, where in this particular case, the reviews were regarding rapes and things like that happening at the hotels. They were having accounts being deleted, things like that. That I think was getting more with the lawyers going, hey, we don't want to be sued for libel. And it's this whole,
or even just the basic, we don't want to be tied up in and being a witness.
Right.
To testify in someone else's court case. Like, I mean,
exactly. Yeah. And all of a sudden you become part of this thing. They want no exposure. And the same thing happens, you know, Uber with, you know, the drivers wrecking something. Hey, those are not our employees. Those are independent, you know, so you have all of these organizations which are kind of playing in the middle, and they're saying, we're just a media hey, we didn't create this content. It's not us. But all of a sudden there's a responsibility, because again, I wrote a big, you know, 6-piece article, I think it was 2010, on kind of the weaponization of reviews. And yeah, got a lot of play for it for T-News. But, you know, that is a problem where people see this stuff is very powerful. And all of a sudden there's somebody out there in the world now going, oh, if we can go put a sock puppet account and say something like, here's something horrible that happened, now that this has to be published by TripAdvisor, that's the new norm, all of a sudden you can start taking down your competitors. So this is a really murky area, which we'll have to see. There's that whole freedom of speech.
there are far more nuanced ways to mess with your competitors in the world of technology today.
Oh no,
like
absolutely.
one of our ones we're surprised no one's picked up on is, you can do through many different types of bot technologies. You can geofence areas and listen to what people are writing socially. All you have to do is keep an eye on your hotel, and the second someone says something about a long wait, a bad experience, anything like that, you can manage their reputation by just as simple as, hey, really sorry you had a bad experience at your hotel. Please don't judge our city by your experience. Come have a drink on me across the street while you wait. And instantly you improved your standing, and you made the people who created the challenge
white hat methods.
I've used
white hat methods versus gray hat methods versus black hat methods.
Gray zone methods. Yeah, but I will point to one other thing too. Is that you can't have best of both worlds. Is what first off, I know that late night talk show hosts validate the ignorance sometimes of our society, that their lack of knowledge. But I believe collectively that most people are smarter than we give them credit for in lots of things, and they can smell bullshit.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think they can smell bullshit a little pretty quick when it comes to some of this stuff. And you have a company that says, hey, we're going to tell you everything you need to know about this trip and make it their big marketing thing. We're going to give you insights. We're going to give you all this knowledge, except the part that makes us feel uncomfortable, which we're not going to put on postings, and we're going to keep people from putting up there. So when these things pop up like this, you can't go over and keep following up with we're going to tell you everything you need to know. At least mitigate the marketing message to be reflective of the fact that you're going to give information that because of these things are going to sometimes be filtered because of the conditions of legalities of the world. I mean, I'm not trying to be blind eye and say, oh, you're not going to get sued if you say something bad. These things do come up. It's legitimate that TripAdvisor has to be concerned about these things, but don't go running around as if you're the Pied Piper of all information as it's handed to you, because it's not true. You're not sharing everything that's being shared with you because you have these concerns. So I mean, there should be a tempering of marketing message.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's going to be a moving target.
Hey, there we go. I thought you were just ignoring me. I don't think TripAdvisor markets themselves that way as being the be-all, end-all source. I think they've done a fairly effective job over the many years of being just a source. But I can't recall any time that they've taken a stance of they're the beginning and the end. They're just.
Maybe I read into too much of their ads, because I've always felt that they've tried to point out that
they
are the source.
The owl?
Does the owl speak to you in different ways?
Well, I do have visions of owls talking, but that's a whole other thing that the therapist said I shouldn't talk about on shows.
and wearing bathrobes,
yeah, right. Anyway, I just thought it was a part of the three triads that you had mentioned, Darlene, that reviews are such a critical component to the decision process, and whether or not this in fact makes people pause in anything different than they had before this coming out into the news. And I agree. I don't think it's really going to make a huge effect. For some, it might make a difference where they might change some things, but the general populace, I think they're just going to keep doing what they've been doing. So
but again, Lauren, I will take exception with people being smarter than they are. The question is what they're being fed. Right, because if you're getting
they may be intelligent,
bad information, right? Yeah, if you're getting a stream of bad information from, trust a source you trust, and Ed's list of where these go. Some of these sources are giving them really bad information, and some of it is the ecosphere of, if they're on Facebook, they trust their friends, and this person seems smart, and what they're sharing is just completely not founded in any form of reality. That starts creating some challenges. So
when we've had this discussion before, that fundamentally the premise of what Facebook's algorithm is based on popularity and virility, is a flawed algorithm, because popularity is not truth. Popularity is popularity.
Right.
So you have the same issue.
Well, and actually, you watched the latest episode of The Orville, didn't you?
I did.
As soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh, Lauren watched The Orville this week."
I love The Orville. I love that show.
Needs to footnote it. No, but that is a huge issue. You gotta figure out, because again, if these media companies do start deciding what is truth, that's a whole nother thing that maybe people don't.
I like how you said "if." As if they're not actively playing a role in what is truth.
Oh no, they are. But again, if they really start truly editing, well, and now it's getting to be even more, right? They're starting to say, no,
Right.
these are validated sources and how you do it. But you start getting the whole journalism versus media versus user-generated content. The things, again, that came out in the Senate, there are two things. One is the advertising. And when you have, Facebook and Google going, gee, we didn't know. And you got to look at the film clips of Al Franken.
Yeah.
It is just hysterical. I mean, it's just, yes, he knows he's on camera. He's trained for camera. He's a trained comedian, but he just kind of goes, there's like this facepalm moment, which is just a classic where he's like, you have all this information. Of course not. They don't care. They were getting paid. Right? I mean, their business model was, this is good. We're getting money for this.
Because, again,
I think, Robert, you said the distinction between journalism and media, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we have lost sight of those two things, and they are very different.
Well, because I think there's far and far less journalism out there. Like,
absolutely.
Or there's more. I don't think there's less journalism, but I think there's more media. So it feels like.
Well, there's journalism, there's content creation, right? And then there's media. And it's that kind of random content creation, which drives views and, earns money and gets traffic and things like that, right. And this isn't anything new. I mean, I had a cousin who got a degree in journalism from a top school, and this was years ago, could not get a job and started working, I think, for The Sun. Right? I mean, just one of these newspaper tabloid rags. And she interviewed everybody, Paul Newman, Michael Jackson, and published articles. She never spoke to any of these individuals. What they'd do is they'd write up some salacious, story, send it to their press people who would say, no comment, because we don't talk to these guys, right? We don't even want to do that. And then they would just say, yes, here's what we heard, and this is what was said, and all the stuff that the lawyers approved. And what did they do? They generated a bunch of traffic and at all the check. Oh my God, alien babies. And people, I don't know if they believe it or not, where we get into that whole, they're idiots who read it. I don't know. Or they're just looking for just goofy entertainment. But that's been going on forever. But now all of a sudden you get it on a scale where it's very, very scary, right? And you got people passing this off as truth because they have shared it, someone you trust shares it, or someone you think you should trust, and it's just garbage because the original source didn't fact check anything. It was just going for clicks.
We'll go back to two things. I know one thing that Darlene, you and I had discussed as a possible conversation topic was the merging of digital and revenue management, which I want to get to, but I want to go back to something that I have always given you credit for. You have been always resolute and have been consistent in this messaging for now more than a few years, and that is the storytelling aspect. The value proposition of storytelling. And it leads credence to what we're talking about right now, is that all of us have shifted our paradigm to accept this new echo bubble that we put around ourselves of self-fulfilling content and so forth and listening to messaging. But at a core, going back to hoteliers are kind of following the lead. We talk about shiny object all the time and so forth. Oh, hey, that's something new. Let's try this. Or, hey, that's a different way of doing things. Let's do this. And they're getting off of track of what core fundamentally is hospitality. And hospitality, to your credit, has been persistently, there's a story to tell. And that story breeds business because people want to envision themselves within the story that they're creating. And you've always been persistent about that message. You've always pointed out, look, you need to make sure that these things are in place. So as more of a reaffirmation of the process, kind of, if you can bring us back into that kind of conversation a little bit as to, hey, there's a story to tell. Well, how do you create your story? Focus on the things that are tangible to you and not chase these variations all the time and get lost in the process.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, for that. I feel like I've been talking about storytelling my entire life because, we did start talking about it probably back in 2008, 2009, before a lot of people were certainly in hospitality. And one of the guys that I met early on when we started to broach this subject is Daniel Edward Craig. And for those of you who don't know Daniel, AKA James Bond, I call him. He is a GM turned novelist turned hospitality consultant. So Daniel has this really unique blend of, he understands what it's like to run a hotel, and he also knows how to tell stories. And so he and I have talked about this ad nauseum. And I think one of the challenges is that hoteliers, they don't know how to put a story together. It's a concept that's pretty foreign to them. And so what I explain to folks is that there's really 5 elements to a story, right? You have this, and think of it in terms of a novel. So you have the setting in a novel, and naturally in the hotel world, that would be your location and your history. You have the genre in a novel, and that would equate to the style of your property. You have the characters, obviously your staff and your guests, the plot, which is the actual guest experience. And then lastly, and this is hard, I think, for people to get their heads around, is really the subtext of your message, right? What's the positioning and the values? Is this, a fun place to stay? Is this an efficient place to stay? Is this a family place to stay? And if you look at the content you're producing in those terms, then you can start to develop a story that is right for your property. And it doesn't matter whether that's the Red Roof Inn along I-35 or whether that's the Plaza in Manhattan. Each of those properties have stories. And I find that, and this is a conversation I've also had with the AHO folks, is, because they're mostly limited service or mid-level hotels, they struggle with, I have my free breakfast and, people stop here on their way to somewhere else. And that is their story, right? But you have to pull it out of them sometimes. So, but the storytelling is meaningful for a number of reasons, and that's why everybody does it today. Pick any brand, right? This is a key component of their marketing, is telling stories. They're not trying to sell us product. So,
those staff, especially for a limited service property, is such a huge asset. I mean, there's sometimes some people with very interesting stories to tell that either about themselves or what they've been through with their life, or which are really kind of interesting, special. You can get local news coverage on that. You can do all sorts of things. Plus, they live in that area, and in many cases, they are experts, or they have relatives who run the
local
really cool
experts?
whatever.
Working at hotel.
Think of
now we're going into Ed's world. Yes, we are. We're going into Ed's world.
I think I've said that on every show that I've done, which is hotels in most cases are the largest employers of local experts that there are.
For sure.
And they don't use them. They don't utilize them. But
and they don't use them at all. And actually, they hide them away. They don't let them carry their own cell phones. And they have these crazy social media rules. And
they don't let them talk. They don't let them mention where they work. Nope. And
right. No, and it's a shame because, I mean, when you get the experience of being able to talk with them, you realize how much of a fount of information. And Darlene, to your credit, and I will always give you credit for this, anytime I bring up this topic, especially with limited service hotels, when they look at me baffled and say, what do you mean there's a story to tell? We're on the side of whatever, between whatever to whoever. And I'm trying to explain to them it's about storytelling. So I always refer to what you have always persistently pointed out in market. It's like, look, everybody has a story to tell. And I give the example of my own personal experiences when I was driving back down to Florida, moving with a big truck. Fortunately, there was a few hotels that actually had the common sense to refer to the fact that they had a parking lot that I could pull into and pull out without having to back up anything. That I could pull in a truck with. And
I'm guessing those were hotels on 75, weren't they?
And that, boy, I tell you, that was why I booked, because I cannot back up a big truck with a trailer attached. I can't even back up a trailer. What am I kidding? So
you could thank the Canadians for that. Florida has a drive market from the Canadians.
So for me, it was the perfect insider information. And then to add to that, at one of the hotels I stayed at, there was a problem with the air conditioner in the room, and we called down, and a very pleasant gentleman came up. And as it turns out, he was a veteran, because he had a artificial leg that he had on, and it inspired a conversation, which inspired the fact of saying that you need to go to this certain restaurant that's literally walking a distance from the hotel. that look, you know, because we got talking about this and this, and he overheard my wife and I talking about, well, we got to get this, we got to do this for the dogs. Somebody says, well, if you want to do that, you know, the restaurant around the corner, they take dogs in this. Wow. And honest to goodness, nowhere mentioned, nowhere referred to, but the guy fixing our air conditioner, great guy, goes over and he was empowered to be able to talk about this stuff. He was a friendly guy and he was responsive.
Or he wasn't. He was just But either way, it worked out to the hotel's benefit.
Right.
But here's the funny thing about that. So at the heart of every hotel is a real estate investment. Mm-hmm. And what is the one thing that makes real estate valuable? Location.
Yeah.
And yet somehow the people who are experts on picking locations, because, you know, you're going to spend that kind of money, you should be good at picking locations, like completely forget all of that.
Right.
In
why did you
marketing, why to stay with them? Because location is about, like, why is it interesting there? Well, it's not just because it's adjacent to a mall. It's because there are other things. It's a series of things of a community that make that location valuable. Mm-hmm. And they know this. They study the heck out of it before buying the darn asset. And yet when it comes time to market it, it's like, first of all, most hotels' websites don't even have where they are, like, immediately available as a visual cue. Like, top of the fold, in your face, should be where you are. And you shouldn't assume that where you are can just be, like, the city name. Because if I don't know that that city exists, that's not beneficial.
Or they get cutesy, and start using localisms as to what their location is. Moho, Soho, slow, whatever. And you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And to your point, trying to find an address, you can even cut and paste and drop into a map saying, where the heck are you? Yes, I agree.
Basics,
absolutely
guys.
Right.
The most important thing about a hotel is where it is. Then everything else makes it better. But you start with, where are you?
And that's pretty simple because most of them don't move around very much.
No, I mean, you'd think it would be the thing they nailed because it's the only thing that's consistent. Oh, we went through a huge renovation, but we're still at this address.
Okay. I got to share an old story. When I used to run and own restaurants and so forth, I was opening up a new restaurant for somebody, and they were really hell-bent on putting it in this certain strip mall that was at this major intersection in St. Petersburg. Major intersection, brand new strip mall, and they just saw that was the end-all, be-all location to put a restaurant. And I was fighting because I parked in the parking lot there and I was watching, and nobody was pulling in for any reason whatsoever because everybody was just flying through the intersection to get to wherever they were going. So I pulled the traffic numbers up, and all the traffic numbers validated that this would be a great location based on traffic silver. And this is long before internet stuff. And so I started going over and polling people by going to local restaurants not on the intersection as to what kind of business they had. And so I found out that most people, when they're at that location, are too far from home and too near work, but not close enough to work yet. So there was no reason for them to want to pull in to a non-retail, restaurant-based kind of thing, because by the time they got at that intersection, they were either close enough to just finish going home, or they were close enough to finish going to work. So it wasn't lunch, and it wasn't going to be dinner, and it certainly wasn't going to be breakfast. It was too far away from everything that even though the traffic was there. But that kind of common sense mentality of, okay, if you build a hotel, you would probably check with the local information source to know that you're going to get the traffic you need, the exposure you need, the visibility you need, and all these other things associated with it before you built the building. So to your point, Ed, it's like, with all that in place, why wouldn't you use the local resources of information to augment the value proposition of why you purchased there? So, yeah.
Boy, but, again, with that, you get into situations of curb cuts and access. And in many cases, yes, the good developers really look at it. In other cases, somebody's trying to sell a piece of land and get that mill pad site done and moved, and somebody's like, "Yep, that's all right. Let's go." And here are the right numbers, and they don't do it. And
they'll just turn and burn and they'll just keep turning and burning the retail space or the space in general. But to hotels, some hotels are built that way too. Some hotels were built for a single purpose. There's a single employer or there's a single function, and then when that purpose shifts, when that employer is gone or the traffic shifts, market-wise, where the business district is no longer the main business district, you have to reevaluate what markets you can get, and that's where the storytelling from Darlene.
What happened to Radiator Springs? I mean, after the main highway went through, no one went to Radiator Springs.
Nobody went to Radiator Springs. Yep, they were just left on the side.
Yeah, go take a look. Go drive down Route 66.
I love that road.
Yeah.
So, Darlene, where else do you want to talk? Do you want to talk a little bit about the digital marketing revenue combo, or what would you like to do? I know your time is valuable, and I don't want to drag you out too much. We've been having too much fun.
I'd like to get everybody's opinion if they're seeing what I'm seeing, which is that, and it's long overdue, that revenue managers and digital marketers are starting to realize that the sum of the parts is stronger than them working individually. And so while I don't see a single role at a property encompass both of those responsibilities necessarily, I am seeing that those two roles are starting to share information better, collaborate better based on the data that they're seeing, what strategies that they can put into place, and realizing that in many cases, certainly if you have an independent website, then you have the flexibility and the adaptability to change to those market demands on a dime. And that helps both of them, right? It helps the digital marketing goals, and it helps the revenue management goals. And I'm wondering if you guys are seeing the same.
I'll let everyone go first, since I've been doing the rocket programs for a while. So.
Okay. It's never made sense to me on how marketing can operate without revenue management at all. Because revenue management is who's setting the pricing and understanding demand from other channels. Their data is so valuable for a marketer to understand that I don't understand how we got to a point that there are marketing people inside of hotels that don't collaborate or answer to ultimately someone who's revenue oriented. I also don't understand how marketers got into a situation where they're not incentivized the same way as a revenue manager is. I mean,
it should be a blend. Yep.
Yeah, they should be incentivized on the revenue of the hotel, not, vanity metrics. Like sub-metrics inside of marketing should not be part of the incentive program. The incentive program should be, we all want to make more money. So everyone should be aligned to making more money, and you don't see that. And I think that's why you see that separation, because, in the orgs where marketing's metrics are like just way off and left field, like they want to drive, more traffic to a source. Okay, great. To what end? Like, is there anything being done to make sure that traffic actually converts to something? No, just traffic. Okay.
And yeah, I think that's the answer.
You've got the sales department drive group business, and maybe at this particular, time or place, yes, they can play around with, we're going to increase the group rate, lower the group rate, but yes, maybe the salesperson should be sitting on the sidelines and not doing stuff, and that's a real problem. So should they be incented because the hotel's doing better overall? And you can make a good argument that should be it, but then you've got catering, right? You've got the banquet managers out there going, we are going to be popping in, a wedding here on this, or a local function. You go, wait a second, you're taking up the ballroom. We've got this piece of group, and it's always been that way. You've got these, these various factions who are trying to incentivize their people, make a lot of money, and go and do their job the best. But it's that coordinating function of really, and that's where the general manager comes in to really figure out how this stuff is going to.
Well, here's what's difficult is we see a lot inside the orgs that the GM answers up to the owner, but the sales and revenue and marketing answer up to the management company. Right. And so they actually have completely different goals and their loyalties are.
I would argue a couple of things too. One of the points that you made earlier about the fact that marketers should answer to revenue management. When this whole dialogue first began, I thought that there should be maybe digital marketing should run revenue management, and
there should be no such thing as digital marketing.
Right. Now, in all honesty, it's a component.
It's all marketing. Yeah.
It's all marketing now. Yeah. The other is that revenue management must drive it, because there has to be a goal set for the marketing to go to, which answers something that you pointed out, Ed, is that marketers don't want to be connected to revenue management fundamentally, because they have gotten a mea culpa this entire time. Just picture the fact that there's no recourse to their failure. If they did a marketing effort, it's just a matter of spend and bonus.
I don't want to say that the human in the job doesn't want to, because here's the thing. At the same time, can you imagine having a job where you fundamentally don't understand what you should be doing for your organization?
True. For those who truly enjoy it.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yes.
Right.
And so, to that end,
I pick less on the people in the position who are, getting the cushy, worthless metrics that they're being paid on. I blame it more on the people who set the KPIs for those people to, like, you're kind of screwing this person to be the joke of your organization, because the stuff they're talking about, none of your other silos of business inside the hotel care about or even think it's serious.
Right. But the reality to it too is that marketing as a division within a company is usually the least staffed, if staffed at all, and relied third party more so than any other in its functionality. So you have somebody that may be responsible for an agency's performance, but they don't want to be held culpable for it. So they'll be the liaison, but they won't necessarily be the responsible party for it. They're just going to be the communicator. I would also add to
I like e-commerce positions, but not hotel style e-commerce, like retail style e-commerce. Because if you look at what a retail e-commerce person does, it's what a revenue manager and a marketing person does
together. Right. Yes, I agree with that statement. The other is, I say there should be an equal combination of sales with digital marketing and the use of revenue management, because in the old growth of our business, sales has been the default by reservations and everything else that says, okay, after we're done exhausting our transient options, we're going to leave you the scraps for group, or at very best, a salesperson is going to fight for their high group demand cycles, and that's it. And now with the tools that are available via marketing, a sales team can now effectively fight more specific battles that says, listen, I can sell because of a certain collaborated event and a certain, Saturn's lined up with Sun kind of thing, that we really can sell the bejeebers out of this time block. So don't do transient first, a second. Give me first, transient second, and have people truly argue, because they have the data capabilities of making those points. And it was kind of fun on the Revenue Council for HSMEI recently. They had a lot of the sales council or board on there with them. And I don't want to reveal the name of it. He was a very vocal, and it was so fun. It was like this penned up, hey, you revenue managers, now that you're listening to us, let me tell you how the real world. And it was so much fun to listen to the silence of revenue managers as the salesperson is going, and you do this, and then there's this, and there's this, and you didn't do that. And it really brought to home the reality is that needs to be a blend of sales in there too, to adequately, not to defer to them as a filler after transient has been exhausted, but a true talent as to what can be done optimally.
Well, here's the thing. A real revenue manager is looking at all sources of business and measuring which ones make the most sense for each day of the year. And that is a real revenue manager. So a real revenue manager should be looking at questions like, where does it make sense? Where's the cheapest way we can get the highest quality guest during this time period? That's what we do.
Well,
so if that's
the highest quality guest, how many revenue managers really look at personas? Right.
And I'll add one more.
Managers look at lifetime customer value. Right.
Oh, I can tell you. And here's the thing, Lauren, to your whole thing and your concern about some of the shift in the world. The brands aren't experts at customer lifetime value. I can tell you that for sure.
No, none of them are. No. Well, that was one of the things. Actually, Darlene isn't involved with the conference this year for HSMAI. So, but that was one of the things we came up. We came up with
like, that's right.
Yeah, we came up with a theme like it starts with strategy, which is fine. But I really wanted to focus on customer lifetime value, but everybody kind of agreed nobody does it really well at all. And there just wasn't, it was just too hard, right? It's too far off. And you look at that and go, wow,
they can't even math it out. Unfortunately, they can't even math it.
The loyalty groups within the brands get that, because that's what it's all about.
But even a lot of their definition of customer lifetime value is not its annual transactional value of a loyalty member, not the overall impact for now to that person dies. I mean, that's the thing.
And total spend.
Statistics.
I'm thinking
total spend, not share of wallet.
As a whole, the airlines do that pretty well.
Airlines do it really well. Actually, most large-scale businesses understand customer lifetime value incredibly well.
Right.
This is another one of those strange spots that
I think there's two math. I always use them as two criteria. There's two math things that most people in hospitality have either forgotten or never got taught, and that is lifetime value and displacement value. They just don't know how to math it anymore. They don't know how to and understand the usability of those two figures when it comes to decision process. I'll also add one other category of a department that I think needs to be included into this process with revenue management, and that is accounting. And I make that statement from the fact that now more and more channels are being used, more and more methodologies are being used, and more of it's being funneled through the accounting process for payments and so forth, is that they have to be actively aware of what's going on to know how to calculate actuals, because you get a lot of overlaps of services and so forth. And a lot of people or a lot of organizations are taking identical credit for sources of business, and they're being paid because accounting is not being included in the conversation, saying, hey, look, this XYZ provider, that when they give their production, compare it to these ones and see if there's a production overlap. And if so, we make the decision. We have to create criteria as to who gets it, who doesn't get it based on what we say it is. And those conversations have to be included in the revenue management process, because accounting needs to funnel that back to revenue management and say, this is the actuals. Booking's great, but until they actualize, you can't assess the actual value proposition of the channel. Right. And from that, determine what you want to make a strategy. So I would include accounting in the process of keeping that dialogue beyond just marketing and sales.
There should be collaboration at all levels.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
the GM should be rounding them all around.
The best businesses have collaboration across all aspects of their organization.
Right.
So, we can keep individually bolting people on here, but the bottom line is, every major silo of a hotel should have some form of leadership, and there should be some form of leadership that gets together and sets strategy. What are we? Right. What are we doing? What are we going after? What aren't we going after? So then that leadership can go to everyone else and say, here's what we are. Here's what we're going after. Here's what we're not going after. You'd be amazed at how much that would fix.
But
if everyone
in the reality
knew,
in the reality of the world, though, revenue managers have been put into this oracle position. They walk in and they crack the book open and they tell people what's going to happen, and they walk out. Even the GM, because unfortunately ownership groups, management groups have put the revenue managers sometimes in a pedestal of direct pipeline that circumnavigates the GM. It used to be the GM was the only sole spokesperson for that property. Now, no. They're the spokesperson for most of the property, but revenue management has been put into some lead roles where the GM actually has to confer with the revenue manager what's being said to the ownership and management teams, because they've been put into that position. So there has to be, if you want that teamwork infrastructure, revenue management has to be brought into that collaboration, not dictation, I think.
And I'm not sure
which is a funny shift.
If this is where you're going with that, but I don't know that the goal of the organization should be revenue or profitability. I think those are the results of the goal. Right. And so I think I hear too many people talking about, I need this ADR and this ALS and all this stuff. What really I should be focused on are, who are my people? How do I get more of my people there? How do I get them to stay with me for the rest of their lives? How do I get them to spend more money with me when they're on property? And how do I get them to tell everyone they know about me? Right?
Perfect statement. Perfect statement.
Right. So it's again, understanding who's your audience, what's your value proposition to them, who's not your audience, and what's not your value proposition.
Right, exactly.
And you create this compass of an organization. Like we know, like my entire team knows when certain types of properties call, to nicely educate them, but point out to them how we are not a good fit for them.
Right.
Because we're just not. And it's because there's truth to, there's minimums that we need for our platform to be effective. So, if you're not in that, every member of our team knows exactly how to approach it, because we don't want to make someone mad. But at the same time, we won't sell to someone who it's not right for.
And when you frame it through the eyes of your guest or the consumer, as the case may be, then that notion trickles down to everyone in the organization, and they understand how to treat a customer, how to make those decisions without having, a rule book beside them. They they can achieve those business objectives more easily. And as a result, the goals get hit.
And you hear me talk about this a lot. That's where companies that forget who they are, because you're either in this space, you're either a hospitality company or a real estate investment company.
Yeah.
You fall into one of those silos. And at the point that you forget who you are is when you create the problems. When real estate companies start trying to act like hospitality companies, that's where it gets expensive. That's where profits go down. That's where guest satisfaction goes down. And when hospitality companies start acting like real estate investment companies, the same thing happens, just in different spots. Know who you are, and know that who you are defines certain aspects of how you should operate.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. I can only begin to tell you that the notes, I mean, one, I try to keep up with the pace on the timing of when it is in the show that these statements are made. But honestly, Darlene, thank you. You made some incredible statements,
really good stuff
out of this. Really good stuff. And to add your credit too, the 5 steps, I had never had it described in such a nice tiered way. And I think it's a great statement to make. So these show notes are going to be really cool. I mean, honestly, I'm reading them, I'm like, dang, that's some good insights for that.
Now, if only someone would watch this.
Oh, come on.
There are 4 of us here, Ed.
I tell you, again, I have this weird thing. We're getting this bump now 2 weeks out from the shows where we get a good audience for the week, same kind of thing, about 1,500 to whatever. And then we get this second week surge of the shows. And I think, I don't know whether it's because I seed out the shows afterwards saying, hey, don't forget the show and so forth.
It's algorithm.
Is that what it is? Yeah. It's all algorithms? Okay. But if we get this 2 week surge afterwards, I'm like, wow, okay. So I guess it takes 2 weeks for people to find the show and watch it.
It's the tidal wave of word of mouth, Lauren. That's what happens.
Right.
So Darlene, what do you, let's talk about, because you're probably one of the best people in content marketing in hospitality. What has you excited? What are you experimenting with right now in your marketing? Not for hotels, like just in content marketing in general.
I'm trying to figure out, I think, Lauren, you just said it. There are so many assets out there, so many different kinds of content. For me, what's exciting and what I'm racking my brain to try and figure out, and I haven't cracked the code yet, is what's the next thing? We started doing, webinar formats a long time ago, probably 10 years. And I feel like it's tired. A couple of years ago, we started introducing the notion of having everybody on webcam, and that seemed to brighten up the asset and engaged more people. But I still feel like that's so yesterday. So I don't know what the next new thing is in how to educate the marketplace and keep us, all ships rise with the tide, right? So I love that, sharing best practices with everyone. And I think, there are companies who go, no, I don't want to participate because I don't want to tell our trade secrets. Well, that's insane.
First of all,
yeah,
I could look at any vendor in this industry and I could tell you their trade secrets by just looking at their product.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's nothing that complicated.
I'll also add to that. I'll also add that, Darlene, there are people, very, very, very few people in our industry that transcend the company they work for, and you are fundamentally one of them. Ed and I even talked about that before, where it's like, we love when you talk, and it's not because of whom you represent, which is all in itself good, but it's whom you are and what your message is that is profoundly impacting.
Yeah, they're lucky. They're lucky to have you.
They are damn lucky to have you.
You can send them that show note.
Yeah, I'm going to send the show note. Damn lucky to have you.
Okay, that's the soundbite. Well, thank you. You're very gracious.
See, I think so. I mean, we don't believe in webinars ourselves. Like, that's why we've never hosted one, but we'll join them. I think the webinar I did with you was the best organized webinar that we've taken part in by like a large amount.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a production indeed, but I feel like, that aside, we need something new and different and something more engaging. You know, I tried this once and it didn't really work well. Opening up the mic to the audience. And that only works with a smaller group of people, right? But I feel like people want to be more interactive. Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to ask questions or challenge or comment more real time. You know, we tried a Twitter thing once, and that was, maybe it was before its time. I don't know. It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it's time to revisit that. But so I just feel like maybe some new, a new format might be better.
So it's funny you say that. We've been experimenting with an old format as a new approach. So last year we did a multi-city set of meetings with kind of who we saw in each market, client or not, even competitor, like vendor that has nothing to do with us. We just tried to seek out who were the sharpest people doing the most interesting things in those cities. And we'd pull them in to just talk about, actually kind of similar to what we talk about here, but we were doing it in a way of, listen, you're the top people in your city, in our industry, in person.
Yeah,
and so now we're starting to lay out the plans to do it year round, because we got, not only did we get so much out of it, each of the participants got so much out of it that it was really interesting. And I mean, and it was a wide array of who we'd invite. It would be like, you know, interesting kind of middle management level person at a hotel, an executive from Amazon, you know, someone from, you know, a management company, a vendor that sells something else, like, and we just get together and we talk about the perspectives of what's going on in, you know, the world of travel, and then would pick up on the themes, and we would only allow it to be 2 or maybe 3 themes, because the first one we did, we lined up like 10. And 5 hours in, we got through 2, and the people wanted to keep going. Like people were calling us on their way home, like, "Oh, you should talk about this." So the next one we went with 1 that went 3 hours on one theme. And so you're right, people want to interact, but I think they want to interact in a more intimate way. And not always does everything have to be new. Sometimes bringing back something is also as valuable. And we think the collaboration, the in-person human collaboration, is an interesting way to really move the market forward.
Yeah.
Little pebbles in little ponds.
Localized. Yep.
And it kind of goes to a little bit of some questions as to, like, when you think about organizations that are trying to represent or work within in industries and so forth, that it's kind of a pyramid thing, that it has its politics to it and has its complexities to it. And this, as what Ed was doing, kind of brings it back to the common relationships, whether within the industry, to Ed's point, or not, that sometimes it's better to have people outside the industry give you a perspective not only of your industry, but of how they have this similar situation or problem and how they're approaching it from their industry's value proposition. And it gives insights.
It's funny you say that. Amazon, like, when they were, the meeting we had with them, they were talking to the hotels like, "Man, you guys have it so good." You have so much, like, aspiration, capability.
It is. Because we're in the best business in the world.
Nothing but inspiration, and for us, struggling to figure out how to inspire someone to buy soap, and
just moving product. Yeah,
and of course the hotel people are sitting here going,
I put in a slide in my rocket presentation at the American Express point about how people are looking for aspirational travel, and they've given up the white picket fence goal kind of thing, that they much rather enjoy life than it is to own something. And it's true. We're in the best business in the world right now. We're in the business that everybody wants to do stuff with. The problem is that there's a lot of clutter, a lot of noise. I was going to bring up earlier, the paralysis of decision. Yeah. Because if you can succeed in that diversity, then you create a focuser. And to that end, to what you're saying with the gatherings that you have and so forth, is that voice is in the mainstream. It's in the people that are every day are showing up behind a front desk. They're every day cleaning out a hotel room, or every day showing up in their lobby to perform hospitality. And it's not about the person that necessarily own the building, although they have an insight to their own, and without them, it wouldn't be even existing. But they shouldn't be the only voice in that conversation. They should be an aspect of voices. And to that end, I think there's needing for hospitality to grow is the acceptance of what we're talking about. There is the need to tell a story there, and that they are a willful part of it, not just an observer at best. That person that walked in my room to fix the air conditioner is as important to me as the person that owned the building that I'm staying in, because to me, it's my experience of being there that's the paramount in my perspective as a guest. And so those things have to have equal importance, not a pyramid of importance. Mm-hmm. And to that, I think your gatherings locally of people that can share experiences, and they have to be, to your point, in a very comfortable environment where when you go in I call it preaching, when you're in front of a room and you're spewing rather than listening, even as much as you're trying to solicit engagement. You need unique people that are confident enough to have an opinion in front of their peers to even get that engagement. And a lot of times,
here was the other interesting thing, though. In every single one we did, with the exception of Myrtle Beach, because they all know each other, in every single one we did, most of the people didn't know the other people we invited.
Yeah,
and getting them comfortable enough to open up and talk without reservation that they're going to be perceived differently than they hope they were being perceived is profoundly powerful compared to attending something that's controlled, managed, structured. Right. Delegated and fed. I mean, it to what you're saying originally, Darlene, about trying to look at things differently and what's next and new. And yet, to your question, it's like sometimes the older is the newer. And I used to say old school market with new techniques. It's like, send them a snail mail kind of mentality. And sometimes people appreciate opening the mailbox and having something in it.
Let's say handwritten thank you notes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you notes. That art still works for people. Like
I send edible arrangements.
There you go.
No, you'd be amazed though. Like whenever I go stay at a hotel that's nice enough to give me like a really good deal, I'll always send them like a large edible arrangement because they all end up doing the same thing. They bring it into the break room and the front desk staff gets to eat it, some of it, and all that. And I always end up getting a wow, Ed, like that edible arrangement was fantastic because it's fresh fruit. Like, who doesn't like fresh fruit?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in Florida.
Lauren had been hoping for cookies, but that's okay.
No, yes, those little candy bars on the stick.
No more cookies.
Yeah, my watch is telling me, stay on the cookie.
Like, Lauren, your heart rate has spiked, and yet you're not moving.
Why are you sweating? Yeah, it's like Hal out of 2001: Space Odyssey. What are you doing, Lauren? Anyways, Darlene, again, I can't even begin to thank you. It's been an hour and a half instead of a half.
As promised.
As promised. But you know this. You've been with us long enough, and you've been with us before. You know this was going to go that way, so there's no surprise. But I don't want to make sure that we don't miss anything that you were hoping that we can bring up based on what you were interested in talking about. Was there anything that you felt?
We could chat all day, I'm sure.
I think we've tried it a few times. We have tried to stretch it. I think our longest has been 2.5 hours. But
wow.
Robert brings these lists of things. I add lists, and then Ed has an insight.
And we haven't covered one of them.
And we haven't hit one of them yet. We have a grocery list of stuff. Which, to that end, Darlene, would you love? We would love it if you would stay with us while we hit some of these topics that we threw around. Is there anything that, given you dealer's choice, is there anything out of the list that was distributed that you say, hey, while I'm on this, I'd love to talk about this?
The whole Facebook thing is interesting. That, their announcement that they're ramping up their people and their budgets to address security. I guess no big surprise. You would think they would have gotten ahead of it before now.
Why? It wasn't profitable to do that before.
Yeah, exactly. No, true.
They would have been eaten alive for diverting money.
Yeah.
To something like this, while they still didn't have well-proven revenue per user and things like that. And they did just recently release, do you know how much revenue per user they get per month? $20.
Wow.
Is their measurement on that.
Wow.
The last one I ever heard was Google at 7, which I'm sure they're way above that now. Because they're not talking about their average revenue per user anymore.
And how many active users do they have right now?
That's what's hard to nail down.
Yeah, that's the fuzzy number. That's the fuzzy number.
What audience?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
they're looking at 1 point.
Even if it's a billion.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about getting toward 1.4 billion. They're 1.368 for the third quarter.
Yeah.
No, the funny part, not the funny part, but one of the aspects that one of the stats from InfoStat that came out was where the revenue opportunities are for Facebook, and it's definitely international, more focused on Asia Pacific, obviously because of the China hole, and then the fact that there's so much in the market that's yet to be acquired by Facebook.
Did you refer to it as the China hole?
Yes, I did. I did refer to the China hole, the Great Firewall of China. How's that? That makes it more politically correct.
Well, okay. Actually, let me just read off those stats. The U.S. This is for third quarter 17, right? U.S. daily active users 185 million, which is a lot. That's a good chunk of the population. Right. Europe 274 million. Okay, almost 100 million more than the U.S. U.S. and Canada. Asia Pacific 476. Right, that's triple the U.S. and Canada, and then even the rest of the world. Right, once you get rid of U.S., Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific, most people go, well, what's left? Well, 433 million daily active users, which again is an insane number. 2.5 times the U.S. and Canada. I mean, it's just staggering numbers.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they could spend a few dollars on security.
A little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah, because they know now that if they don't do that, they are not going to be able to sustain that growth and maintain it. They're going to start.
They'll erode it.
Yeah, they'll erode it, and that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a certain type of person that if they say the wrong thing because they just accidentally quoted something from Facebook enough times, they'll just stop using Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, very true. And it is kind of funny to see people's surprise when it's revealed that Facebook has tools to isolate geographically, demographically people. People are still surprised by that statement. Like, well, where did you think this advertising was being focused on? I mean, how did you think Facebook was actually doing what it was doing?
Even to the point where how you will make most decisions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Most.
Yeah. And then you hear Zuckerberg on his shareholders call talking about how they're going to focus, as you said, more on security. So it is contra to your point that why would they self-limit themselves until they got called on having to do so? Because it was contra to their market
until it's
strategy.
The user experience,
right?
Which, let's face it, now it's threatening the user experience. People are going to be tuning it out. I mean, especially when you learn like one set of Russian sites created this desire for a rally, and then another set of Russian sites set up people to rally against the rally. Like,
right. Mm-hmm.
That's the type of stuff that's going to tune people out. That's going to make people go, you know what? Nothing in here is real. I need to stop doing this. It's bad health. They're going to become the diet soda, phenomenon where.
Okay. I got, considering the uniqueness of having both you and Darlene Ed on the show today, I want to bring up a question about the new
people from Canadian heritage. Like, what is heritage?
The very specific, those two things. But no, the idea that there is this growing worry and concern of the editability of rich media and the ability to create in almost realistic fashion, whether it be AR or whether that they can now filter and control rich media to the point that it's hard. Right now, it's kind of easy to see fake media. When a cat jumps over the picture of the moon, you can understand that's fake media. But to take out something of an image so well, because the tools have gotten so good that you can't tell the difference that it was actually altered, or to make a scenario visually that didn't exist in reality, and then use that as a credibility to something. Both of you are in that space because you have the shared community content, and Darlene, you with the rich media and the storytelling. What concerns do either of you have that turns into a doubt within the medium that you guys use so much of?
Media has always been used to manipulate people.
Yeah.
Always. Okay. The difference is more people can use it now. So previously it was like dictators and warlords and wealthy. Now it's just generally available that if you're skilled enough.
The moon landing didn't really happen. Are you saying the moon landing really didn't happen?
Actually, I mean, there's a funny statistic on that. It would actually cost more to have faked the moon landing at that time than it would to just go do the moon landing. Mathematically, it didn't make sense to fake it. You could have just gone to the moon. Here's the thing you have to understand. Like, human behavior is human behavior. We're all hypersensitive now because we're all hyper aware. Okay, so access to information has somewhat shifted how we see things, but there's still the same fundamental things that have always been happening. Dictators, controlling the media to make the people that they're trying to exert their will on fall into line. I mean, heck, let's go back in time. Religion has used it over and over again to control the masses.
Yeah, brilliant at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, so now we're going back to the Bible media-wise, okay? So that's always happened. The difference is now, Lauren, if you decided you wanted to spend your time on it, you could actually control part of the population. It no longer takes a massive amount of power or wealth to control a part of the population. That struggle is an interesting new dynamic because it puts everyone on a level playing field. But I don't think it's going to, like, everyone knows that media has always been used to manipulate people. And then the ones who don't know, that's fine. We'll just put it in the media and we'll manipulate them into knowing. But the bottom line is, I don't think it's going to make people shy away from it until it becomes the worst part of their day. And I think that's what Facebook's trying to answer. And we've hit a boiling point on Facebook specifically, where it's been pointed out that, oh, by the way, everything that got you upset was because you spent too much time fishing in the same pool that represents the exact same thought process that you have. And so it magnified all these points of view, and half of them were fake anyways. That's what they need to solve for, right? Because that's going to make people walk away.
Well, we were talking about fake personas.
Go ahead. In the context of hospitality, I would say the fact that people can manipulate media, I don't think that's a giant threat. Certainly it's not in the brand's best interest to do that. Although I have seen hotel properties, I guess that's why Oyster existed. Yes. Where they will take up construction outside the balcony window, and then the guest shows up and there's a crane, as their view. That doesn't serve a company well. You might get them once, but you're not going to get them twice, right? So in the hospitality space, I think people all have day jobs, and so to Ed's point, if you want to spend your waking hours manipulating stuff to trick people for one reason or another, I think that's just a short-lived thing. So, but it is easy to do, certainly a lot easier than it has been. And I think people, and we said it early on in the show, I think people are gullible. Which is why, going back to reviews, I think that's why they check on average 3 different review sources, because they are skeptical, because their experiences outside of hospitality are influencing that. And so they're going to check around, they're going to check the OTAs, and they're going to check the brands, and they're going to check the vanity sites for that reason.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to validate this decision that they've made. I mean, that's before they book, there's this validation step where it's like, okay, I've done my research, I've figured it out, I think this is good, but where have I made a mistake? And then, you check the reviews and look for, keyword. If people start seeing bed bugs or dirty or rude and things like that, all of a sudden they go right back up the funnel and start searching for, their second and third choices.
No, I was thinking about subtleties where you can't necessarily control your consumer content. So say, for instance, and there's plenty of applications out there to the general population, to your credit, Ed, saying that more people can get to it, where they had a picture of them on the beach and they decided to take out all the bad stuff. and then they share it
Yeah.
in part of in the medium, and then somebody bases their purchase acquisition on the consumer content that you shared, and then in turn come back going, what the F is this? There's all that junk out there that it wasn't in this picture, and you're like, that's not my picture. You say, yeah, but you shared it, or it was part of resources that I had available
share
for you.
or if you put it on your site, you're representing it as true.
Right. And that fuzziness, that softness of those things engaging, because we are such a, it is, well, that's not fuzzy in its interpretation. It's fuzzy in in the fact that most people don't know that they're not aware of the fact that they're doing that responsibility.
Yeah.
And so
you
because
can
of
have
that,
something that says you aren't endorsing, but if you share it, you're endorsing it.
right.
I mean,
well, there's still people that are sharing.
Well, that's why I think it's funny.
Content without authorization.
There are hotels and hotel companies that just put unfettered feeds from TripAdvisor on their site. Which is hilarious because it's like, oh, here's this horrible review that you're allowing to show on your site. You are literally telling people that review is 100% accurate.
Right. And then you're paying people to
site.
actually see that review too, because
Right.
you're driving business to your direct channel to show it off. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I went through that life. But
Well,
yes, but
and-
I'm just
and
saying those are the
also-
kind of things I'm thinking. Go ahead, Rob.
And
I'm sorry.
I post something in the chat here. You can see
Lauren Gray's
talk
Instagram
about
feed? Yes.
Lauren Gray's Instagram feed. This is how Lauren presents himself on Instagram
Every day. That's me. Yes. Believe me, I get a backlash on Twitter where her population, which is quite heavy, her audience is very large. They're telling me on Twitter that I should surrender my Twitter account to her because she obviously has way more people following her for apparent reasons than mine.
Because
so,
because on Twitter, I think she's like Beach Lauren 02 or something like that.
Something weird, yeah. Because
I
was an early adopter.
Lauren worked at Melbourne Beach Hilton in 02. That's why he's Beach Lauren 02.
That's what exactly right. Yeah, there
exactly
you go. Yeah. So nobody can convince me those are two different people.
Normally,
you've never seen them in the same room.
Darlene, what else? What else would you like to talk about? This is
what else do we have the hat for that?
I think I'm good. I think I have to run to Shake Shack and get a burger.
Next time you come to Orlando, I'll take you to BurgerFi.
Okay.
Yeah, you like BurgerFi. And if you make it out to Phoenix, then I'm sure that Holly would be welcoming the company to go to Shake Shack because she's a ardent supporter of it from the looks of it. I hope she's feeling better. She I don't know, but something hurt herself and she wasn't able to join the show today because she felt that she would not be able to talk. So she's in the chat room. I appreciate it.
Like she hurt herself to where she can't vocalize, like, because at first I thought you were like saying she hurt her hand or something.
Yeah,
no, I think she hit her nose and she has a couple of dark eyes and she thought that
So she's entered the whole inner sanctum of hacking apparently, and things have started getting
That's
ugly,
what it is.
So.
Yeah, she's taking her coding classes, and that's what's happening out of all this.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she's in
Well,
some
thank-
sort of
thank you very
argument
much
over
for
Jason
that.
or something.
Yeah, Darlene, thank you for.
Thank you.
Yes.
For inviting me.
It
Fun.
is always a pleasure. If people want to know more about you, about Leonardo, where is it they can find you, Leonardo, on all the information?
They can certainly find me on LinkedIn or by way of Leonardo and leonardo.com.
Awesome.
All good.
Awesome. Darlene, again, thank you. It's great to say that this is not the first time we've had you on the show, and I hope it's certainly by any means that you always have an open invitation to join, and we sincerely appreciate the fact we got to focus on topics with you today. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. See you guys.
Good to see you again.
You too.
I'm going to allow Robert to rant on his wedding experience since he made such a point.
I'm so glad we get to talk about this.
Drop that in there. It's like, I can't miss this wonderful, happy, joyous occasion for him. Robert, please tell us about the joy of the experience of booking a wedding.
First, how many people? How many people were you trying?
I didn't.
Yeah, give us some details.
No. Okay, first off, my daughter's getting married next July.
Congrats.
And she has a professional wedding planner who's actually excellent, right? Who does is doing a fantastic job. So the wedding planner, Chloe gave her some ideas, a place where they want to be. It's going to be in Austin, right? Want to be close to 6th Street, lots of different options. So this one part, should I name the hotel? I'm going to name the hotel.
Go ahead.
What the hell?
Come on. Go on.
Major brand, Westin, right? Management company, White Lodging, right?
Wow.
This should all be good. Great location on 6th Street. There's no reason this should be a bad experience. Initial request for a quote, and it's just a small block. I can't remember. It's probably 30 rooms or something like that, which may grow.
Oh, so
but,
you're over like the weak point, because the weak point for most hotels is 6 to like 12 rooms.
Oh no, this is going through the sales department. Oh no,
wow.
Definitely through the sales department from a known wedding planner, right in the city, right
in market wedding planner.
And you're Robert Cole.
Yeah. Come on now.
I'm not.
Do they know who they're dealing with?
They do now.
They do now.
I haven't contacted the folks at White Lodging to go, what the hell are these guys doing yet? But that's the next, when the next shoe drops. So anyway, initial request July 13th, right? Oh, change in staff, all sorts of stuff. Have to keep, are you guys going to get back to us and things like that? They finally get the quote. They get a quote, which the terms, it isn't even like a contract. It's just
when did they get back with you? How long did it take for you to get?
Oh God, it was late August, early September. Oh well, no, there was some back and forth, and this person changed, and just all this, like, you're sitting there going, seriously? And again, popular hotel downtown. Now there's the W does very well. I mean, they've got a lot of competition.
And JW sitting down the street. It's not like you didn't have choices. I mean, come on.
JW's no. Right down there a lot. You've got the Driscoll down the street now, which is really part of Hyatt.
Oh yeah,
right. Awesome. You got the Four Seasons does a great job. There's a new Fairmont opening up like
the door. Don't you walk into a Four Seasons and they go, "Here's your cup of coffee, Mr. Cole. Can you please sit over here? We'd love to go."
We dusted off your statue.
Statue over here. This little bust. No.
So, but the Austin Four Seasons on Town was, when it was built, a great hotel, and it really is. It's not on 6th Street. It's quiet. It's fantastic, right? But anyway, so they go through. They finally get, and the contract is just a bunch of crap. It makes it really unclear. Like, wait, are we on the hook? Are we guaranteeing this inventory where we have to prepay or what? Because they're saying things with cutoff dates, but it's just like, it's really amateurish. I mean, really just painfully bad, right? So we make it through. Oh yeah, I know. Well, that's what I talked to my daughter about. It's like, we'll just send them a bill for my time. And I'm not even spending that much time. I'm trying to stay out of it, right? Because there's a wedding planner who knows what they're doing. It's just like, send me the stuff. I'll take a look through it to see if there's anything.
Trying to be a good dad. You're trying to be good to, hey, look, this is your choice, your thing.
They finally, about a week ago, get the page for the link to the booking engine. Right. And this is, again, a month after the thing's been signed, at least. Right. So they finally it doesn't work. There's no inventory on any
when is the wedding? When is the wedding? When is the wedding date?
Next July. It's within the window. There's not an issue with that. They just totally, I don't know what they did, right? They screwed up.
They didn't know who they were messing with. That's what they didn't know. They did not know that.
They'll know now because it's on this show.
They didn't know how to set up a freaking link to a group block on the website where you say, here's the website that you link to your page.
Are they still using Starwood stuff, or did they have to switch over to Marriott?
Oh no, it's Starwood meetings. This is not. I was going to say that would
be excusable. I mean, Westin is now trying to fit inside the world of Marriott.
No, it's still 100% WestinMeetings.com stuff. Okay. Very straightforward. Okay, so then, and I had to intervene then because I'm trying to book the block. I'm trying to book into the block. I can't do it. Like, Chloe, you don't want to hear this because she's got a full time. She's working. She's teaching stuff, right? This is not something that is good. And this would have been like her favorite choice of a hotel, which is kind of what she went to. I don't think she'll ever recommend anybody goes. She's thinking of pulling the whole thing and sending it down the street to Driscoll, which I think at some point she should probably just go, why not? Right? I mean, let's just do it. But anyway, so they get it. No, here's the interesting thing. So they finally get it loaded up. I go in yesterday to do it. The taxes are doubled. They have actually 2 entries. And here's my theory. Now, again, it may just be incompetence, right? And that's what it probably is. But I'm looking at this. They have a line item for city tax. And this is loaded into the Starwood or, the reservation system. They've got a line item that says city tax, another one that says occupancy tax for the state occupancy. Right, 6%, 9%, all done. But then they have 2 others that say city and occupancy with the same amount. So I'm going, why do they have?
So they're taxing the gratuity, I'm sure, as well for everything.
No. These are there are double line items for tax, but under two different account names. And my theory, and again, I don't trust anybody on this stuff because I've done too much internal control stuff with hotels. I'm willing to bet there's some collusion. Either it's incompetence or there's collusion between somebody in accounting and somebody in the sales department, throwing a couple line items on these groups and then splitting the difference on 15% of the group revenue. Right? Real easy to do. And why would you have two accounts that would just say city and occupancy with different names? You have no need for multiple accounts in your system, right?
You kind of have to bring that to white lodging.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, I know. I probably will.
You need to take your booking. You need to take your booking, walk into the property, walk into their accounting office and say, explain to me a line item for whatever it is and tell me exactly where this is going. And before you tell me a lie, I'll call you out on bullshit.
Just go to White Lodging. Just go to White Lodging. They are so good to this industry. They share a lot of their, thought processes. Like they're big contributors to the overall. Like,
do you think they're centralizing their sales teams down there, and maybe that's why you're hitting some bumps that they were changing who was going to be on property versus not? Do you think anything that's happening, or what were some of the excuses?
I don't know why. Well, I'm looking at this from a customer perspective, which is like, wait a second, right? And I almost didn't notice it because I looked at it and went, wait. That total is too high, right? Because I just knew, kind of with the taxes, a couple $100 a night, and this, it's like, that's for 4 nights. It should not be like over $1,000 or, that doesn't make sense. And then when I looked at it, because you can only look at it by drilling down in the detail to see it, and you go, oh, that's not good.
You need to screen capture that stuff too. And you need
I
to
did.
Get all
I got screen captures on it.
Yeah, so what am I doing? I'm telling Robert to do this. Good God, he's the man that can garner data from anywhere. Never mind. I even said that. Excuse my impotence on that one.
Then there's a thing that I blame White Lodging for, and it's not just White Lodging. Other groups, including the Four Seasons in Austin, do this. They charge a state recovery, or it's called a state recovery. And in Texas, there is a franchise fee. I have to pay a franchise fee now that I'm a LLC in Texas. So what they do is they recoup it from the guest, which is a lot like which it has nothing to do with
the fuel fee. Remember people try to pull off the fuel fee?
Oh yeah, it's the same as a resort fee. Everything else they throw in 0.6%. And I mean, the Texas comptroller came out and basically said, no, you can't call it tax. If it's tax, you got to send the money to us because that's very illegal to misrepresent.
Like you can't.
Oh no, they call it a recovery fee. There's nothing that they explain what it is or anything like that, right? But because it's a fee, it's also subject to occupancy tax. So they're charging a stupid on a $209 rate. They're also rounding up the penny, which you kind of go, yeah, they're doing stuff like that. And you just go and you go, great, you're adding $1.25 taxable every night on this room block. Really? And you just go, you assholes, because you are. If you do that, you are an asshole. Right? Yes. It's just so customer hostile, so unnecessary.
And the White Lodging.
And the Texas.
Hey, wanted to let you know what's going on at one of your hotels.
Yeah.
And to save you time, here's a link to the video show where I first went to 1,000+ hospitality viewers.
Yeah. But no, hey, other ones do it. Down there too. A lot of them don't, but. Hilton and Marriott, I don't think do, but a bunch of others do. I don't think Hyatt does, but anyway, the bottom line is the Texas comptroller basically says this is a cost.
Marriott does do it. The Westin is a Marriott.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, now yes, that's true. That's true. The other traditional ones now that they have not necessarily.
See, I just now noticed that Robert looks a lot like Steve Martin on Father of the Bride. He's got the hair color going. He's got the look. I think we're looking a little kind of Steve Martin this year. Father of the Bride stuff.
Well, there you. I need to get the arrow through the head type thing and a banjo. So, yeah.
And learn how to play it and be funny. But I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Well, there are a couple other gaps I'm just working on. I'm at the starting point of it, Lauren.
Okay, we'll get the arrow. We'll start with the arrow. Go from there, right?
Yeah. So anyway, the bottom line is the Texas comptroller actually in their thing says this is a cost of doing business like payroll or anything else. This has nothing to do with revenue.
So they're going to charge a payroll fee soon, and then
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, a food cost,
a room
fee,
a room depreciation cost, amortization.
Yeah, and
value.
it isn't associated even with it isn't associated with the franchise tax. Is associated basically with your profit margin. So food and beverage is not even access to rooms. They just happen to be charging it because they can.
Is there a
So
way?
anyway,
have you talked around to the market and see if any other hotels in market are approaching it with this recovery fee thing too? Because in all honesty, this is a great article to write. It's like, dude, this is a question to ask.
The other white lodging properties are, and then there are a few others here and there that do. So you can. It's legal. I mean, they went through. I think a couple of years ago there was a court case actually with phone company. Could you even recoup these? And they kind of went, yeah, as long as you don't call it a tax, I guess you can. You can charge a fee for anything, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's not illegal to charge people fees for whatever you choose. But they said don't call it tax. And then they went to the hotels and basically said, yeah, you can do this, but not, it's not it's a cost of doing business, has nothing to do with this. And so it's just another hostel, but it's literally nickel and diming, right? I mean, that's the bottom line of it. So anyway, we'll see. But I mean, in the hotel industry, I mean, you look at, I think, we had a thing on, or Ed, I think, mentioned, Hilton paying out, millions of dollars.
Well, here's what I thought was interesting is, and it actually just popped in my news feed, is it was just using, Hilton had that breach back in 2015. It cost them, basically peanuts. Like, I think the number was $700,000, but they're saying basically,
that's right. Yeah.
The impact of GDPR is, if that same exact breach happened to Hilton today, it would be a $450 million fine.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's a quarter destroying fine. Like it would destroy a quarter for them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I've just got contacted by a publication that wants to do an interview on blockchain stuff, right? Because blockchain's like super hot topic, and they're saying, well, in the hospitality industry, anybody aside from TUI doing this is like, wait a second, guys, blockchain doesn't help you do any of this stuff. You need to get your processes down and your content together and your contracting and make all of this stuff works. Well, then yes, maybe you can have it apply to the blockchain, but otherwise it's going to be just the Wild West as these hotels charge off the blockchain. I mean, these breaches are going to get worse, and just like this, where I'm suspecting potential for some sort of embezzlement. There was a services group, actually part of American Airlines, Teleservice Resources, that we discovered. And again, I don't know, I figured it out. We saw this travel agency that was getting a lot of business to us. And we're like, what is this? And it happened to be in, we were based in Dallas, and it happened to be in Richardson, Texas, suburb. I'm like, what agency is that? Sort of think, well, what was it? It was some people at the call center getting creative because they supported Fairmont and they supported Wyndham and they supported our group and small luxury hotels, a bunch of other stuff. And every time somebody booked without a travel agent, they allowed to build a pseudo IATA number into their system. So if somebody was a cruise agent or something like that, they could add in an IATA number and build the file because they didn't have the IATA thing. So these guys just figured out, hey, this person is paying whatever. It's like the bartender where they pay cash, right, for the beer. And it's like, well, do I put it in the till or do I put it in my pocket? I don't know. At some point, some people
actually, it's not quite that bad. That would be like the bartender deciding to sell you a beer for $3 instead of $2 and pocketing the dollar.
No change to the consumer price. It's just the commission. They would just throw in the IATA, their pseudo IATA number,
right? So
and
it's not quite as bad as the bartender putting money in their pocket. They saw money going to waste.
I've had to
pay someone.
I've had to deal with catching people putting in, salespeople putting in, front desk people putting in. I mean, that's old school scam stuff. I mean, throwing in an IATA number and stuff if you were able to get one. Which isn't easy enough to do. You only need 3 people that had an IATA number to co-sign you for getting one. I mean, You know, that's kind of old theft school stuff, unfortunately. But yeah, to your bartenders.
Yeah, but again, the more this happens, and with the lack of, certainly a lot of these hotel groups are trying to get out of the PCI compliance business completely, right? They're just going completely to vendors and saying, hey, your system's PCI, you take care of it. I don't have to do anything. That's great.
Before
That's
check-in.
okay, but once these systems start integrating and working together, and things have to get passed somehow with between tokens, whatever. I mean, that's a lot of reliance on, are these guys doing it right? Who are these guys? They may say PCI, are they really? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. What level are they? Self-certified, or are they? Running audits.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
you know
those
what's
audits
funny?
ain't cheap.
No, they're not. But I will tell you, actually, because EasyYield was the first and for a long time the only channel manager that went through the full PCI compliance audits and everything. And I'd convinced my business partners that it was a smart business move because we were getting into processing reservations. And it was really interesting going through the education of where vulnerabilities can come from. And now today, like, I'm hypersensitive to it. Like, anytime I see anything that's like a security hole, and it's always human crap. Like, someone says, I'm gonna email you my credit card number. No, don't email me your credit card number.
Oh yeah. but then the classic is, I'll fax it to you. Oh yeah, that's okay.
That's so much better.
Oh yeah, that's so much better.
It's like, the transmission's okay, but then it's sitting on a piece of paper floating around and all that. So, yeah.
What are you talking about? You can tap a fax.
Oh yeah, it's harder though. It's harder to do. I mean, certainly a lot of my work with my client, the U.S. federal government, in a particular group which has a lot of security. They'll fax and they'll burn things onto CDs and FedEx them to me. But that's about it. But
isn't it fun to know more about Robert in little layers, like the government's his client, and Focusrite's next week, and now all of a sudden he's getting. It's just little things like that.
There's a lot of.
If you want to talk about a cool technology, and actually my sister told me about it. There's a company in Silicon Valley that's created a new security solution for consumers and government agencies and all of this. And it is a brilliant premise. It isolates.
I always like to hear brilliant premises.
So it isolates the certain aspects of your computing that exposes you to risk. So email, web browser, chat. And when you go to launch it, it actually creates another instance of a computer inside your computer that has no connection to the rest of your computer. It can't do anything. It's its own virtual machine. But it does it in a way that the application doesn't know that it's inside a virtual machine. And when you're done your session, it wipes the virtual machine.
Yeah.
That's actually a really smart. That's very cool.
That's a really cool premise, right?
Yeah.
Because it's people are the problem. Like, you click on this link and, they take your bank account.
Okay. Since we're at 2 hours.
Well, and sorry, there's one other thing I just want to add. All the stuff with the blockchain and people going nuts with, certainly Bitcoin going up. I don't know if it's at 7,000, yet, but there's a new technology which I think may be better than the blockchain. It's actually called the hash graph. So take a look at the hash graph. It's it's an interesting thing that doesn't require the proof of work aspect on it, because right now one of the problems with the blockchain is it's now up to a whopping 7 transactions a second, and that's just not really good enough for a lot of
run a small scale pharmacy on that.
So anyway, that's an interesting thing. But this hash graph thing can scale and does some really, really interesting. It has all the benefits of it, but without this work. Thing.
Yeah, but hotel companies don't care about speed of transaction. If they did, you wouldn't go to their website and see web page loads at like 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, we had that. We had the conversation about Google's Parallel last week, but the one topic that you threw in, Robert, that I want to make sure we don't just throw it into next week is Alibaba's purchase, the stake into
Shiji.
Yeah,
they expanded their shit.
Yeah, that has some meat to the conversation on that one, because I don't think people, when they see these names floating around, like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's more of a whatever than you think it is, because there's connections to that are really affecting what you're opening a screen on, like RevPro or something like that, Review Pro, that pop up and stuff. So yeah, I want to make sure we don't lose that one for next week. The other was just anything I threw in the Cleveland research report stuff. Was there anything, Robert, since you're the dude?
All of it.
All of it. Well, we can throw it next week. I mean, it's not like it's going to be any older next week.
Sorry, Matt.
No. I'm a big fan of all the Cleveland guys. I do. I talk to those guys regularly. So
we'll pop it back up for it.
No, I think one of the things is look at what's happening to ADR growth is now neutral or maybe negative, particularly in the major cities, the top 25 markets, pretty bad. And I don't know, again, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist here, but I don't know about discounting.
Yeah,
that's right. Discounting these rates to the loyalty members, would that have kind of an impact on those ADRs of dropping them a little?
Hey, by the way, we're trying to. Holly's doing a great job. She's still in there. She can let us know any status change. But in principle, or in theory anyway, Cindy Estes Green has indicated that she would like to join the show this year.
Oh, great!
So if we do, which would be awesome, I would love to, Mr. Robert. You cannot miss that show. You have to swear on a stack of what. You cannot miss that show.
I would love
to. Has Robert ever missed a show?
Yeah. Yes, he has. Well, remember, there's been
whenever I drive to Lubbock.
Right. Yes. And then we've had the intrinsically fascinating Ed and Lauren shows. Which
just get weird.
They get weird. And then we have the Robert and Lauren shows, which are strange in their own way. But
I didn't know the show happened when I wasn't on it.
It doesn't. It's like quantum theory. Unless you witness it, it doesn't happen. And if you're not here, it doesn't really. No. But to that end, yes, I'm hoping that
it's St. Ange's cat.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Ed doesn't care what's in the box because he's not in the box.
He's not in the box. And if he was, he'd still be alive. Don't worry about it. Hey, as a rapporteur.
I would be thinking outside of the box.
Outside of the box. There's no box that can hold me. Hey, I want to see the phone again. I just got to drool over it one more time.
Oh, wait. Let me show you the cool thing. Hold on.
Cool thing.
Oh, the animated emojis.
Oh,
yeah. Wow.
Ooh, pretty.
Boy.
Yeah.
I will say the Face
the
ID.
screensaver up to the
the accelerometer. The Face ID is so much better than Apple sold it to be, because it's not just about unlocking your phone. Anywhere that keychain has passwords, when you go to log in, the first time it asks you in the future, do you want Face ID to do this for you? And then when you go back to that website, Face ID logs you in.
Yeah, same as Touch ID. As Touch ID. Yeah, shouldn't be any difference. It's just a different form of authentication.
This is working on sites that don't have native Touch ID support, like don't have so yes,
like one password stuff.
This is working on anything you stored passwords on.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And so you see a little and then it logs you in. It's like
Wow.
All right.
So with that being said and done, Mr. Robert Cole, for those who want to know more about your mysterious government-supported career and business profile,
I wouldn't go that far.
And by the way, the fact you're going to be Focusrite, right? You're going to be down in Focusrite. Yeah,
I will. I will be. Yes, I finally found my little Focusrite name tag. I was scrambling for it, going, oh my God, because
for all the really rich people that have paid a ticket to go to Focusrite,
I was going to say
Mr. Robert in person.
What I love at Focusrite are the number of people, the lobby lizards, right, who go to. and hang out, and the people who are asking, anyone have a free Focusrite ticket? And it is $4,200 this year, but they are offering still some $200 discounts. So.
Oh wow, sign me up.
But again, it's a great from a networking perspective. Where I was sitting there just having a drink, and Paul, what's his last name from Lola, founder of Lola. I keep thinking Paul Allen. Anyway.
The guy from Lola.
The guy from Lola. Really interesting because I had heard something on NPR the night before, which was an interview with him on the book that he had written, which is really very, very cool. Very, very cool book. But yeah, you have access to just kind of talk to people who are hanging around. And if you
like they can come and talk to you. I mean, that in itself is worth the ticket price.
Yeah, and then
there.
More me going up to talk to them before they. Before something comes up and they've got to leave, but no.
So when is your book coming out? My Life as a Government Agent.
No. But anyway, it's a great thing. But what's interesting is some of the private equity folks and hedge fund folks who are also lobby lizards. Because they're like, oh, they want to meet some of these guys I work with. So like, oh yeah, I'd love to meet. And it's like, yeah, I'll be up here. Oh well, things are they might need to meet in the lobby. Instead of
wow.
Well, here's why. They'd rather spend that $4,200 on a nice bottle of wine.
Well, of course they would. Yeah.
With you at that event.
Yeah. But it is funny. The security is pretty tough. They have one particular woman who's been doing it for probably 15 years, and she is a pit bull. She does not care who you are. If you don't have your credentials, you are not getting on that elevator going through that door. And I've seen some people who are friends of mine who, were just meeting somebody for a thing who really got pissed off when they couldn't get on the escalator to go meet them at the top of the escalator outside the entrance. But it's like,
wow,
sorry, she's just doing her job.
All right, Mr. Robert, where can they find you? Where's all the fun connections?
Next week, I will be at the back of the room for Center Stage at the desks for the Focusrite analysts with my computer, always available there during the Focusrite conference. But otherwise,
do me a favor, live stream.
Yeah, live stream.
It is. Oh no! There's a free live stream. They do it. They've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years.
So what's the point?
Well, actually, share the link and we'll share it up on next week's show. You gonna be able to make next week's show, or what do you think?
Yeah, I'll be back for Friday.
Okay.
So we can talk about what happened with Focusrite. So
cool.
Anyway.
All right, Mr. Ed, where can people find about the mysterious and creative world
next
of Flip
week?
Tour?
I'll be at 2 events actually. I'll be at the DC Expedia Partner Summit in Georgetown. Yep.
Now, what dates are those?
That is the 15th and 16th.
Oh, that's the week after next week.
No, I'm sorry, week after next. Next week is OPMA. The On-Site Property Managers Association is in town.
Oh, really?
So Stuart will be down here in town. He's going to come shoot some video with us and a couple other interesting people. It's a very interesting group. It's the vacation rental industry.
No, that's cool. Actually, next week is like conference. It's World Travel Market in London. Huge show. You got Focusrite going on in Hollywood, Florida. You've got the Loyalty 360 conference going on in Nashville. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff going on.
Because there's not a lot of time between now and Thanksgiving.
That's right.
So quick for it.
But then they can find me on Flip2 or on social media, Edward St. Ange.
We never taunted Tim or Stuart. We were kind to both of them today. They were deservingly so since they compliant above us.
No. You don't understand. I'm not going to taunt Tim. I'm seeing Tammy next week at Focus.
Oh, well, in that case, that is a no conversation.
Is such a great guy and expert consultant, and I hear an outstanding father. And
oh my gosh, pucker.
I don't want Tammy.
Well, and
with
Lauren,
that said.
Where can people find the picture of you on a motorcycle wearing a tutu?
Oh, yes. The happy pictures that I love on my side. No, this is at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live for all episodes and archive and link to them, as long with show notes and links of content that we obviously did not get to in today's show. But all of that stuff is there as well. Yeah, sorry, Matt Damon. Sorry, Tim, Peter, and Stuart, that we didn't run out of time for you to join the show.
We'll get you in next time.
We'll get you in next time for it. Again, a sincere appreciation for Darlene Rondeau for joining us from Leonardo.
Totally always classed up today's show. My gosh.
Yeah, it did, really, right? Because honestly, it was sincere. I love Darlene. I mean, it doesn't matter the fact that she represents Leonardo as it is, she's such a vanguard for storytelling, content value, and so forth. And she's been that voice in this industry for so long and doing a great job at it because people are fun listening to it.
And before joining the hotel industry, Darlene was I worked with her at Sabre, where she was not in the hotel group. She was in the airline group. She managed the American Airlines relationship for Sabre, easiest job in the world. So, and, very, very capable, great person.
Yep. You're a great person. With that, we wrap up show number 117. Next week's show, 118. I believe, no, we don't have a guest host for next week's show, but the week after. Sorry. But if it is, that changes, we'll have that in the announcement for those who receive the emails. If you'd like to receive an email being notified of the show, then you can reach us at live at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. You can send us an email.
Or you can just follow us on Twitter at Rock Cheetah.
Oh, Rock Cheetah, yeah. Or timpeter.com/everything.
Please do not be one of the 15 or 60 over 1,600 people who follow Rock Cheetah on Twitter. Please,
it's like a Venus flytrap. It's the bad thing for flies. It's not good to do. So don't go there.
No, it's a good way to finally figure out how to find the mute.
Yeah. All right. With that, gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time as always. Until next Friday at 11:30 Eastern for show number 118. Thank you for attending today's show.